Hi everyone, as you can see I'm making a video on my bed again because well yeah, for the last couple of weeks I was actually mainly staying in my bed, and on top of that we have we have a general lockdown now anyway, and no one is allowed to leave their homes anyway. uh, so so I want to talk a little about my experience, even though I wasn't able to get tested. But I think that's actually quite typical, because I developed some typical symptoms. And even though I developed some typical symptoms, they didn't test me because they don't have enough tests. And that's actually also, depending on the country you live in, that's sadly also very typical, not being able to get tested even though you're showing all the symptoms. So let me talk a little bit about what symptoms I had, and how that developed, my experience with that, because I think it's quite typical, and it maybe can be helpful to some. So it all started at the end of February. We went to a trip. We went on a flight, um, not to Italy, but to Hungary, which is one of the neighboring countries. And at that time, no one was canceling flights. No one was concerned. No one was wearing any kinds of mask. I was the only one who even brought a respirator, and I wanted to wear it on the plane, but because no one else was wearing a respirator on the plane, I was putting it on for a few minutes, but then it just felt so awkward because everyone was looking at me like I was some kind of terrorist or something, because no one else was wearing them, and they all looked at me so strange. So I put it, put it off again, which was probably a mistake. And so at that time, like I said, no one was taking any measures. So then after we came back, um, both me and my wife started developing symptoms, which at first felt just like the flu, not even like a severe flu, just like a very very mild flu. Didn't feel bad at all. It's just maybe like a cold, something in between a cold and a flu. Very mild symptoms, not too bad. So we weren't worried. And sure enough, a couple of days later, the symptoms went away, and we both felt fine again. Um, but then a couple of days after that, it came back, and that's actually also very typical. Uh, if you're very lucky, all you experience are those mild symptoms. That's why you have some people tell you, oh, don't worry about it. It has really mild symptoms. It's nothing to worry about. Yes, if you're very, very lucky, then all you get are those mild symptoms. If you're not so lucky, and that's actually quite typical, uh, after the first set of symptoms, after they subside, it comes back again. And this time, it also feels like a flu, but it feels much more severe. At the beginning, it still feels like a flu, but at the end, it doesn't feel like a flu at all. It's much more severe. So it came back again. I felt like, oh, it's just like the flu, nothing to worry about. But then I was coughing a lot, and I developed a very very high fever, um, over 42 degrees Celsius, which is very high. If it would have been any higher, it would have killed me. Um, but I was somewhat prepared because I always have my infrared thermometer, my infrared thermometer, near my bedside, and I was always checking my temperature. So I saw that my temperature was going up fast, and I was somewhat prepared. I got ice packs and everything, and uh, I took ibuprofen to get the temperature down, which maybe was a mistake. So there were conflicting studies. Some people say take ibuprofen. Some say don't take ibuprofen. In my case, I really did have the feeling that it actually did make it worse. So before you take ibuprofen, go talk to your doctor about that, because it really depends on your circumstances, I guess. But in my case, it really did make it worse. And so yeah, at the end, I had an extremely high fever. But like I said, I kind of saw it coming because I always took my temperature and I had lots of ice packs ready. And I also have this little device here, which is very handy. Let me show you. It attaches to your finger like this, and it measures your pulse, but more importantly, it measures your blood oxygen. So that's very handy, because that's also a typical symptom: low blood oxygen. So the fever was really bad, and a lot of people die because of the fever alone. Then if you made it through the fever, then after that, the low blood oxygen kicked in, and I had difficulty breathing. I didn't develop severe pneumonia, but I had difficulty breathing. So that's the second thing that a lot of people die from, is the pneumonia. So you always have to check your temperature. That's very important. You always have to check your blood oxygen. If any of that is abnormal, go see your doctor immediately. And I did do that, and yeah, but he still won't get me tested, because he says my symptoms aren't severe enough. Great. If, like I said, if my fever would have been any higher, I would be dead. Yet still he says, oh, your symptoms aren't severe enough. The reality is, of course, that they don't have enough tests. So, yeah, that might sadly also be the reality for you. So, if you can get tested, you're lucky. If you can't get tested, isolate yourself, do the best you can, always check your temperature and your blood oxygen.